Hi everyone, this is Nirmala Shekhar here. Today we are going to start a new series using the tools of energy medicine, techniques of energy healing to help us in our self-care. Let's start with understanding where energy healing and energy techniques fits in the entire spectrum. And then we will be looking at one or two principles of energy healing that we need to keep in the back of our mind as we apply and use the energy tools. In the subsequent videos, we will be looking at simple, practical tools that we can apply and use very effectively in different situations, day-to-day practical situations. So let's start with understanding the entire spectrum that we are, the entire system that we are. Those who have been following my videos from before will be very familiar with this stackable dolls. I used the Indian stackable dolls in my earlier videos, and they are all the same color. So I decided to get these Russian stackable dolls, which are all different colors. So it makes it easier for us to understand. Let's start with the smallest doll, which is matching my sari color. This is a metaphor for our physical body. The physical body that we can see, touch, experience, and it includes everything that is part of the allopathic medicine. So every little part of this is being understood. We can see it in the microscope, every aspect of it. This neighbor is a metaphor for our energy body. Our energy body includes all the different systems of our energy anatomy. We may have heard of chakras, nadis, prana, chi, meridians, aura, and many, many other systems. They all form part of the energy anatomy. It's also called subtle energy because we cannot directly see or experience it. It needs a little bit more awareness, a little bit more subtlety to understand and experience it. But modern science, those who believe, have already got different sensors to measure and understand the energy anatomy. So that's part of our system as well. The next one is our emotional self. And this includes all the emotions that we experience habitually. Not an occasional one-off emotion, but something that we experience habitually. And when we are looking at emotions, no matter whether we are aware of the emotions or not, if they are there running under the radar, they are part of the emotional body and they do impact the entire topography, the entire functioning of the emotional self. To give you an example, when we go through difficult situations and we have got experienced emotions, maybe grief, maybe loss, maybe other emotions, anger even, and we have never acknowledged it to ourselves. We are not aware of some of these emotions because we are very busy going from one activity to another, and then we are exhausted and when we fall asleep. The next day starts the whole thing like autopilot. So we don't give ourselves time to even be aware of some of the emotions that are lying deep underneath us. And then when we pause some of the external activity, maybe we are doing a shavasana in the yoga class, or we are sitting down for meditation. That's the time that the conscious mind is not busy with the activities. It's paused, sort of paused, and then these emotions start coming up and we become aware of it. It doesn't mean the emotions are just coming up at that time. It just means they are there, but we were never aware of it. So whether we are aware of our emotions or not, as long as they are being habitually experienced by the body, by the mind. They form part of the emotional body. And then we have the intellectual self. The intellectual self includes our higher thinking, our aspirations, our ideals, our belief systems, our subconscious programming. And this subconscious programming could be within the family through our past childhood, or it could also be something that we have been conditioned through generations of culture, race, religion, or even the geographical area that we are in. So all of that would be part of our intellectual self. And finally, we have the biggest, which is our spiritual self. So when we look at it, we are not just the body, we are not just the mind. These two form the mind. We are not just the spirit, we are all. And if we look at ourselves as just the body, we are depriving us of understanding all the other dimensions. If we are focusing on self-care at just the physical body level, then we are depriving ourselves of other areas of self-care. So this entire channel of the entire series of videos is about understanding that self-care needs to be looked at holistically. We are one. We are not parts. And knowing this, what it also means is that when we make a change in oneself, say we are using an energy tool and we are bringing about a change in our energy body, this is going to impact the entire system. How? Let's take our emotional self. Our energy self is fitted within. So if we change our energy body, our energy anatomy, we are bringing about a change in the emotional self as well, because it is contained inside. And similarly, a change in the emotional self, because the energy body is within that, is going to impact our energy body as well. And then if you look at the fact that our physical body is also inside the energy body, which is inside the emotional body, which is inside the intellectual and the spiritual self, you get the idea. What happens then is that we have aspects of every part of our being held in our physical body. The vibrations, the ideas, the whatever we want to call it in terms of frequency, all of that is held in the physical body. All aspects are linked together. So when we are linked together, let's look at energy body, because that's the focus of this series. Yes, a change here is going to impact the whole system, but it's going to impact the physical body and the emotional body immediately. So any change that we bring about in the energy anatomy through the tools that we're going to be talking about in the next few videos are going to directly impact the physical body and the emotional, whatever emotions we are feeling. And it's not one directional, it's two directional. So any change in emotions is going to affect the energy anatomy, is also going to affect the physical body. And to remember that at the highest level, our spiritual self, the reason I wanted to talk about this the last is because really it doesn't need any self-care at this level. We are infinite potential. We are perfect. Perfection, infinite capacity, infinite ability is all held in the spiritual self. The self-care that we need to do at this level involves tuning in to harness the power of this spiritual self, this huge giant that we have, this huge ability that we have. Tuning in into this, tapping in into that infinite resource, and then applying it to the different layers is what this is going to be involved in terms of self-care. So that's what we are going to be looking at. This is just setting the stage for understanding energy body and where it stands in the overall scheme. So let's look at some principles, common principles, understanding which would help us in applying the tools of energy healing and energy medicine. The first two is energy needs to flow. The moment there's stagnation, energy will not move easily, will not move freely, and that brings about disturbance in the entire anatomy. It brings about pain in that area. It also can bring about disease in the physical body. Energy needs to move. Energy needs to flow. And that's the principle of life itself. Life needs to flow. We cannot hold on to something in the past and stay put there. We need to move forward constantly. So that is the first principle. And most of the tools that we would be talking about would be looking at different scenarios, different situations, different parts of our body and saying, in this area, in this part, energy is not flowing. Let us help it to flow. So that is the basis of energy medicine, all forms of energy medicine. The second one is that energy moves in patterns, in repetitive patterns. It's a habit. Energy is a habit, the flow of energy. So all the different parts of the energy anatomy, they have their own flows. They have their own ways of moving. And if that is distorted or affected for whatever reason, then that part of the energy system is not going to be functioning well. And working with the energy tool means restoring that habit back. Why does the habit change? The habit changes because of life, different things that happen. So, for example, you're on a road and there is a breakdown of a vehicle, and we are told, let's divert all traffic to another route. It's a smaller route, but that's how the traffic wardens are diverting the traffic through the smaller route. Now, once that particular breakdown has been cleared, once that block has been cleared, we need to divert the traffic back into the bigger road. If we don't do that, then even though the big road is available, traffic is still moving through the smaller route. And that's exactly what happens. We go through a difficult situation, maybe some kind of a stress, and in its wisdom, actually, our energy says, okay, this is happening. Let us move in a different way. Let us move in a way that will keep this person safe in this particular situation. And it keeps flowing that way. It becomes a habit. A new route for the energy has been formed. Unless we go back and clear that old block, clear that old whatever was there in the road, similar thing, whatever had shifted our energy pattern, unless we go back, clear that, and then train our energy come back to the new route, we are still going to be operating less optimally. So part of energy healing is understanding that energy patterns have shifted and that it is time to shift back into the original pattern. And what is needed to shift back the habit is repetition. This is key. It took me a long time to understand this, so that's why I'm spending more time explaining this. This is really key. If there is an athlete and that athlete wants to go and play in a very important event, they are going to spend weeks or months, and in case of Olympics, years, preparing their bodies for that event. So that when they are at that event, They start, and then the body takes over, automatically flows into whatever it is that they have been practicing. This is possible only because of repetition. Similarly, when we are looking at an energy tool, when we repeatedly do this, not once, but many times, depending on our situation, if it's a small thing that needs to be corrected, just a few times, a few days is enough. But if it's a chronic condition, chronic situation, then we need to spend the time and the effort repeating the tool until we are able to retrain the energy back into the old pattern that it needs to follow. So those are the only two key things I'm going to be focusing on for today. As we move on through the rest of the tools, if there are any relevant principles, we will talk about it at that time. So stay tuned. Coming up are lots of practical tools that we can use with nothing more than our physical hands. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye. Namaste.